With Johnathan Taylor's impressive performance over Buffalo in Week 11, does this insert him into the NFL MVP discussion?
I mean, what does MVP mean? We talk about this every year. Most valuable player. When Johnathan Taylor has a good game, 9 out of 10 times we win. When Johnathan Taylor has a bad game, because he has lack of touches, Frank, we lose. Without Johnathan Taylor, we do not win football games. The numbers support it. He's averaging 5.8 yards per carry. He's already eclipsed over 1,000 yards. He's got 13 touchdowns in terms of on the ground. He has less carries than Derrick Henry, averages more yards per carry, and he still is 10 times better. Granted, he played an extra game, but he still today, after today's game, has almost 20 carries less than Derrick Henry and averages almost a yard and a half more than Derrick. I am going to go out on a limb and say, even if Derrick Henry wasn't hurt, he would still lead the league and be the best running back in the NFL. I'm at that point now because it's not a, oh, I hope Johnathan gets 2 or 3 yards here. It's not a, oh, I hope Johnathan is going to get maybe 5 yards. If it's 5 yards or more, it's almost expected because of his patience in the backfield, his ability to go from literally from A to B and shoot through the gap. He can run outside the tackles. He can make you miss, and he can fucking run you over. Okay? His pass catching ability has improved over the last year. He's also improved on his fumbling issue that he had in Wisconsin. And we know the 3 years he spent in Wisconsin, when he eclipsed 2,000 yards twice as probably the greatest collegiate running back we've ever seen, we know he can carry the load. And today showed it. You give him 25 plus carries a week, like you've been giving Derrick Henry 25 plus, bro, this man's going to almost have 2,000 yards himself. He is a literal phenomenal running back. He can also pass block, and you literally have to scheme for him. Like, no disrespect to our offense, but when Indianapolis comes into your house or you're going to play Indy, you're literally looking at one person, and that's 2-8. How do we fucking stop this guy? Buffalo thought they could do it as the third or second best rush defense in the NFL. It ain't happening. Next week's going to be another tough test. Obviously, Tampa's, for the last 2 or 3 years, has had one of the best rush defenses in the league. And we're going to have to prove it over there, too. Listen, the numbers sit as follows. 193 total carries. 1,122 yards rushing. 5.8 yards per carry. 13 touchdowns on the ground. 2 receiving touchdowns this year. 32 receptions. 332 receiving yards. He's averaging 10 yards per reception. The proof is in the pudding.
It's tough to argue against that. It really is. And I'll say this. I think it definitely brings him into the discussion. I don't know how far it brings him into, because I can't say that it just automatically shoots him to the top of the MVP discussion. I'm still of the mindset that there are some players that are ahead of him. Though, I got to start making the conversation about him, because even though that the Colts are sitting at a 6-5 record, you take Johnathan Taylor off this team is probably at best 3-8 or 4-7. This team would not be 6-5 without Johnathan Taylor. That's how impactful he is to this team. And when I look at Johnathan Taylor's effectiveness, it is really due into part the fact that that offensive line with the Colts is arguably the best offensive line in the league. But even despite that, Kevin, did you see what he did to Micah Hyde today when he scored that touchdown? I think it was before the end of the first half. I mean, that stiff arm that he threw on Micah Hyde, a solid NFL defensive veteran, literally got thrown to the ground by Johnathan Taylor. I mean, this dude's a beast. He can break tackles. He can extend plays after first contact. And you combine that with the fact that he is getting these amazing run lanes thanks to the offensive line that he has. He's having a phenomenal year. I think he's probably going to finish somewhere around, you got 6 games left? Probably somewhere around 1,800 yards rushing, possibly even 1,900. And if Frank Reich keeps the play calls and just keeps feeding Johnathan Taylor, I could see him finishing with 20 rushing touchdowns this season. I really could. I mean, the guy had 5 today against Buffalo.
I mean, 4 rushing, yeah.
Excuse me. Well, 5 overall, excuse me. But still, this dude is a machine. Keep feeding him the rock, and good things will happen unless you come up against a team that stops him. Which, up until this point, the only person that has really kind of slowed him down is Frank Reich with the play calling. Outside of that, when he's been given the opportunities, he is making the most of it, and he is starting to become, you can start making a case that he is right alongside Derrick Henry as one of the best running backs in the NFL. I'm still going to give the edge to Derrick Henry just because I think Derrick Henry is an absolute machine. One of the best running backs.
But why?
It's because they feed him the rock.
Exactly.
With Johnathan
the
Taylor,
averages are 10 times higher, though. That's what's sad.
I get that. But my point is that I think Frank Reich can no longer avoid the fact that he's got a top 5, arguably top 3 running back right now. And I think if they just keep feeding him the ball, I think Indianapolis will continue to win. And who knows? If Tennessee keeps falling off at this point, you could possibly get back into the top of the AFC South. Granted, you got 6 weeks to do it. But if Johnathan Taylor is doing what he did against Buffalo, if he does half of what he did against Buffalo, that's still a winning formula in my book. So, yeah, I'd say at this point that Johnathan Taylor definitely deserves to be in the MVP conversation. I think it'd be disrespectful if he wasn't.